Hello everyone, this is Marshall Official, and yes, I am finally back doing real updates for the Russo-Ukrainian war. If you guys did not see my video that I just uploaded about the presidential election, I'll leave a link down in the description to go watch that one. In that video, at the end of the video, I explained where I had been. I've been gone for so long because I've just been so insanely busy. I've been working for something that happened last weekend. That weekend obviously is now over, and what I was working for is now also over. So the crazy work that I was doing is finally done. You guys don't need to worry about that. I am back making videos again, and I just say right now this is gonna be a big one. So prepare for a long video because we just have so much to go through. Because this is not just the updates from today. We're gonna be going through all the advances made by Russia over the last 10 days, all of October. And I also want to say this right now. I did not say this in the election video. I'm gonna say it right now. Probably will not be making any more monthly recaps for the Russo-Ukrainian war, the last one was just a complete flop. And that was partially my fault. I threw that video together in like 20 minutes and just uploaded it on YouTube just to put something out there. I should not have done that. Probably should have just left it. But I wanted to put something out there, just something. So I put that out there, and you could tell in that video I was exhausted because I had made that video at like 2 in the morning after doing 18 hours of work. I made that video, that recap video. You could tell, you could hear my voice, how tired I am. The point here is, yeah, so not gonna be doing that anymore. Not gonna be that kind of work. I'm not gonna be doing anymore. That's for sure. And I will not be making recap videos anymore. Just don't see a point. It's literally just me telling you everything I told you already over the month. So there's no reason for me to do that. And again, the video didn't perform very well, and it's just unnecessary nonsense, really. So, go watch somebody. If you want to see a recap video, I recommend go watching Balkan Mapping. He makes way better recap videos. His are just like really short and just like, here's the thing, here's what happened, move on. So his videos are 100% better than mine, than what I'm capable of doing at this point. So we're not. So if you want to go watch a guy who knows how to make a good recap video, go watch Balkan Mapping. And also for today, just to save some time because this video is gonna be so long, we're not gonna be doing the political updates just for today. Tomorrow, I will hopefully be back with another update on the Russo-Ukrainian war, and tomorrow I will include tomorrow's political updates. So just not gonna do that today because there's just too much to go through. Also, there will not be any geolocations. There will be one. There will be one geolocation that about something major that happened. But aside from that, we will not be including geolocations. We'll get back to that in the next video as well. Again, just to save time, this video is not 10 hours long. Okay, with that, let's start in the Kursk region with all the changes we have in the Kursk region. We do have a lot. It's going to take a while, as I said. Starting off over here, the Ukrainian forces were able to expand their control around this area right here, capturing this small little, tiny little village right there. That's not even a village. I don't even see a building, but they captured whatever this is, this little thing right here. And they captured these fields over here and these tree lines. They were able to, at one point, push pretty far into Vuhledar over the last 10 days, but the Russian forces then pushed back and pushed them back out of it. So the Ukrainian forces were able over the last 10 days to push into this area right here, but then the Russian forces were able to push back and kick them right on out like this. So the Russian forces were able to push back there. The Russian forces also recaptured and pushed the Ukrainians out of this little incursion they made right here into Medvedja. So Russian forces are pushing back here. The Ukrainian forces are slowly being pushed out of this little salient they made right here. Whatever Ukraine's goal with this little cross-border incursion right here has probably failed. So Russian forces are advancing there. We do have some major updates from the Kursk region. The Ukrainian forces launched a counterattack right here, and they were able to advance and push Russian forces back from these few villages right here. But as soon as the Ukrainians did it, the Russian forces turned it completely around. They launched a major offensive from... Oops, wrong color. They launched a major offensive from this way, and this way. And aiming for all this area right here, Russian forces were able to recapture Olgovka. And they've actually been forced the Ukrainians to completely abandon all the ground west of these few villages here and these tree lines here. They've even retreated out of Zeleny Shlang. Zeleny, I don't know how to say it. I actually do not know how to say that. Sorry, but I just cannot say that one. So the Russian forces were able to capture this area. There's a massive gray zone here. The Russian forces will probably take over pretty soon. The Russian forces will probably control something in this area right here very soon. They've also recaptured numerous villages up here, launching offensives further in this direction as well. They've crossed over the railway tracks right here and have pushed the Ukrainians out of Novaya Surochina, and this area is now in the gray zone. In general, the Russian forces are aiming to recapture all the territory to the north of this highway right here and this one right here, all of this is what Russia is trying to recapture right now, leading towards Suja. Russian forces have also recaptured Borky and Spolony right here. They pushed up to the edge of Plakova. And in general, the Russian forces are continuing their major offensive. In general, what the Russian forces are doing is they're advancing all around the front from every direction. This way, this way, this way, and also down here, trying to push, and basically they're trying to push in all directions to get around Suja and force the Ukrainians to either make a stand in Suja or just retreat out of it. So it's pretty clear that the Russian forces have totally turned around the Kursk offensive. The Ukrainians did launch a counterattack, but as soon as they did, the Russian forces launched their much bigger offensive, and the Russian forces have recaptured significant amounts of territory. And in general, the situation in Kursk has now turned completely against the Ukrainians. Basically, it is a one-sided battle at this point. Let's move on to the next front. In Vovchansk, we actually had some very interesting updates. The Russian forces were able to recapture the aggregate plant, and they pushed into it from this direction. They raised their flag on the eastern building, so not only did they capture part of it, they actually captured the whole thing. So the Russian forces have actually put some effort onto the Vovchansk front to capture that aggregate plant completely. This is a major blow for the Ukrainians in Vovchansk. Nevertheless, this area remains pretty much a dead zone. Not a dead zone, but it remains a forgotten front or a stalemate front, a front that knows that neither side is truly trying on. But there is at least some Russian activity in the area still, as we can see. Let's move on to the next front. Russian forces have also continued their advance in Sinkivka and pushing further into Petropavlivka. Russian forces are clearly advancing out of Sinkivka and are increasing the buffer zone around it. They're trying to capture Petropavlivka, which will result in Russian gains about this territory right here. Capturing all of this will allow them to quickly push into Ukraine's rear of this area, and in general, they will basically be able to capture all the ground east of the Oskil River right here, which will then put them in a good position to either hold a defensive line, or if they get bold enough, or if they have enough strength, to push into Kupiansk. This area was, for the most part, pretty quiet and pretty silent for quite some time, but we can see now the Russian forces are starting to increase their efforts on this front line. And we can see the Russian forces down here in the south of Pushani have not stopped either. They have pushed up right up to the outskirts of Koleshinivka. And we can see here the Russian forces are now at their closest point, just 1 mile. They are 1 mile from reaching the Oskil River. So they are now 1 mile from the Oskil River. If they capture this village, they will cut the Ukrainian front here in two. And the Russian forces are now very close to doing so. And once they do this, they will push and capture all this territory right here, which will leave Kupiansk in Russia's sights. Russian forces made a small advance down here. They've also managed to capture the entirety of Stelmakivka. This is also major because it now opens the door wide open for a major Russian push towards the Oskil River from this direction, pushing for Zenkove and Novoplatonivka, Bohoslavka, and Zharizove. Russian forces have actually been able to cross over from the Luhansk Oblast into the Kharkiv Oblast right here by pushing from Rivka. They crossed the border of the Kharkiv Oblast into the Kharkiv Oblast, and they pushed into the village of Vishnivka. So in general, the Russians are showing heavy activity from here all the way down to here, pushing west in general. Let's move on now to the next front. Further to the south, on the Luhansk-Kharkiv front, Russian forces were able to expand their control west of Makivka. Russian forces it's unclear what Russia really is aiming for. They're just kind of advancing in general, because this area is the farthest from the Oskil River. It will take quite a bit of effort to reach the Oskil River from this area. There's also a lot of villages, and there's a lot of different terrain here. It's not just wide open. We do have some rougher terrains, lots of tree lines, and some bigger villages like here. So this area is a lot more defendable by the Ukrainian forces, but the Russians are putting pressure here as well. It look more realistically, what Russia is trying to do is to complete the capture of the Luhansk Oblast right here. This area, this part of the Luhansk Oblast remains under Ukrainian control. If Russian forces can retake that, they'll be pretty close to retaking the entirety of the Luhansk Oblast, with only a few areas still left under Ukrainian control. Like this area right here is part of the Luhansk Oblast, and so it's just part of the Zhevresty Forestry right here. Russian forces also advanced south of Nevelsky, and they're pushing south towards Novosadove. They're pushing west, they're pushing west towards Ternay, Russian forces are obviously trying to capture. They're pushing this way and this way with the goal of capturing all this territory right here. If Russian forces can do that, they will continue to advance south along this highway towards Toretsk. If Russian forces can capture all of this territory right here, then it will put them in an excellent position to push on to Lyman, a a battle of an area that Russia already controlled back in 2022, but lost to the Ukrainians. So Lyman is an infamous city that the Russians tried. Unlike Izium, which Russian forces simply abandoned, they fought pretty much to the last man to hold on to Lyman, but they were just not able to. So Lyman is the area that Russia would like to recapture, pretty much for revenge purposes. So politically, Lyman holds great importance to Russia, and it is also a very strategic area as well. No, don't deny its strategic importance. Moving on to the Bilohorivka front and the Siversk front in general, Russian forces have actually opened this front up. There were even reports, although they turned out to be false, the Russian forces were able to capture a major amount of territory, something like this. Russian forces were able to capture all this, pushing right up, capturing this town right here, and pushing pretty much right up to the gates of Siversk itself. Those reports were, however, false. But what was true was the Russian forces were able to advance a little bit here, and the Ukrainians withdrew their forces entirely from around the Bilohorivka area across the Luhansk border back into Donetsk. They've also abandoned the town of Vuhledar without a fight. Russians do not have a presence there, but neither do the Ukrainians. In general, the Ukrainians have completely opened this gray zone up right here, this massive gray zone. They have pulled back significantly back to the villages of Sherebryanka, all the way down to Verkhnokamiansky. There were also reports here Russian forces were able to capture the entirety of Verkhnokamiansky. That, again, was also proven to be false, but the Russian forces did advance here. Moving on from there, we don't have much else from this front. No changes here. On the Chasiv Yar front, we have only one minuscule advance. Russian forces captured a city block within the city. Not a big deal, but it is an advancement nonetheless, worth mentioning. Moving on from that front, we get to the Toretsk front. Russian forces have been absolutely dominating the Ukrainians on this part of the front. You see here, they've captured the entirety of the area between the Russians that were here and down here. So it's now pretty much one continuous front line. And the Russian forces are continuing to advance. They captured a huge chunk of this. Looks like a railway or industrial area. It looks like this massive high-rise building area. It is a high-rise building area. It looks very defendable. Russian forces have captured a significant part of that. They have not advanced further within the city center itself. However, they did force the Ukrainians to abandon it and withdraw further back. The Ukrainians also were forced to withdraw from the stadium. Not the rest of the high-rise area in the city center and the stadium is not yet under Russian control, but the Ukrainians have been forced out of it, so it is in the gray zone. The Ukrainians do not have a presence there. So once Russian forces do move into it, they will take it pretty much without resistance, except for maybe artillery. Russian forces also made a small advance up here, capturing a little bit of areas right here. And in general, once Russian forces are on the verge of capturing the stadium and the rest of the industrial area in the city center, and after that falls, all of this will be wide open for Russia's taking. All of this right here will be wide open for Russia's taking, with very little resistance. At least a lot less resistance compared to what the resistance they faced right in this area right here. The only other real areas the Ukrainians have to really defend heavily from are the Terracons. But other than that, the front in Toretsk is very rapidly disintegrating, and I would even say Toretsk is on the verge of falling at this point, because they're losing all the areas they can easily defend, and they're being reduced to just the residential areas. And once they lose their outposts or their big fortress areas like this, and this, then the city tends to fall quite rapidly. Russian forces also advanced here in Lyudanivka, north of Nelipivka. They captured this tree line, a couple buildings right here. In general, Russian forces are advancing north, trying to reach the larger, not city, but they are very big villages of Sherebryanivka and Petrivka to capture these two villages right here. These are towns, not cities, but they are very big towns. So Russian forces might have some trouble taking these. But in general, the Russian goal on this front is to capture something like this, probably before the end of the year. Moving on to the next front, we see many differences, many changes. Russian forces completed the capture of the very last part of Vuhledar. They've captured the very last part of Mykolaiv. They've advanced and pushed into Lysivka, aiming for Toretsk. They've pushed and captured this area north of Svatove. They've advanced to south of Svatove. They've completely captured the town of Sukarina. They're in general, Russian forces, they have now captured the railway that's in this area from here all the way down to here. They now just have to follow it the rest of the way towards the Volcha River to encircle these cities right here. And speaking of those cities, Russian forces advanced to the north of Hernik right here, capturing this last forested area. Russian forces also advanced into the gray zone that the Ukrainians abandoned some time ago and captured these areas right here. And the Russian forces also pushed further out of Hustri, capturing these tree lines right here. This is a mistake. Ignore this. I don't know why this is under Ukrainian control. That's a mistake. I'll fix that later. Russian forces also reached the Volcha River from this area and pushed into Ostrivsky. And in general, it's clear the Russian forces, this is major, they reached the Volcha River. So from this direction, from the southern pincer, they have completed their goal and have reached what they were supposed to reach. Reaching this river, the Ukrainians can no longer retreat to the southern direction. They are now cut off from the southern direction. From the north, they can still pull out of these cities, but as the Russian forces continue their advance along this railway, it's going to get worse and worse. And these pretty significantly sized cities will probably be forced to either fight to the last man or just give them up. That is your update for the Pokrovsk Kurakhove front. It is continuing to disintegrate rapidly for the Ukrainians. It is just not looking good for Ukraine. To sum it up, every single Ukrainian front is basically collapsing. Not rapidly, but slowly, but the Russian forces are advancing effectively everywhere. And here's the only geolocation I will include. It is to show how Vuhledar has fallen. I am so sorry I was not here to do this right as it happened, but I am reporting on it finally. You guys know I was busy, but here's the update. Vuhledar fell some days ago, and they've also captured all this area here. They are already pushing to the outskirts of Bilohorivka. And this, in the fall of Vuhledar, pretty much means that the entirety of Ukraine's southern Donetsk area is in major trouble of falling. The fall of Vuhledar is a major blow to the morale of the Ukrainians. It was such a politically important village because it was just such a symbol of Ukrainian defiance, and now it has fallen to the Russians. The Russian forces also advanced pretty significantly and entered Katerinivka and completed the capture of the northern warehouses of Konstantinivka. And finally, Russian forces also advanced in Zolote Niva. They've actually captured the entire thing. So now there's nothing between them and pushing all the way to Veliki Novosilki from this direction. They maybe even capture it and force the Ukrainians to abandon this entire area. In general, the entire Ukrainian front, from Kursk down to the edge of Donetsk, is collapsing rapidly. From here all the way to down here, it is collapsing for the Ukrainians. It is not looking good. The only place for the Ukrainians where there's pretty much no changes is on the Kherson front for obvious reasons. There's the big river, and the Zaporizhia front, which is just at this moment not a very high priority front. We do have some changes. One little Russian advancement right here, capturing this block of trees right here. And they also have a Ukrainian advance. Over the last 10 days, the Russian forces were able to cross this bridge and gain a foothold right here in this area right here. However, the Ukrainians then launched a counterattack and were able to push Russian forces out of this bridgehead. That's why you see a Ukrainian advancement right here. So in general, this front has effectively not changed whatsoever. The Russian forces, however, what we can say is that this little Russian incursion could be them testing the waters to possibly open another front of offensive actions against Zaporizhia. So pretty soon, right now we're seeing pretty much non-stop and very effective and very powerful Russian attacks from here all the way down to here. Give it a few more days or weeks, we might see this extend to here. So the Russian forces are clearly pushing heavily across the entirety of Ukraine. It is just not going well for Ukraine. They are losing on every single front. And the Ukrainian forces are in desperate need for something to change. But the reality is Russia is just clearly winning this war, at least at this point. Slowly but surely, they are advancing on every single front. And for today, that's going to be all for you guys. Tomorrow, I will hopefully have back to regular, ordinary daily updates or close to daily updates. For now, that is everything caught up. That is your whole last 10 days of advancements by both sides right there. I'll see you guys tomorrow with another one, most likely. With that, make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell notification. Let's get a like goal for this video. I'm gonna say let's hit 200 likes. For this video, let's hit 200 likes. Thank you all for showing up and watching this video. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.